text 40, chapter title, Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishihi Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan Shatre Agayat Prachetasam Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishihi Atodyam Vitudam Shlokan Satreya Gayat Prachetasam Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishihi Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan Kshatriya Gayat Prachetasa Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narada Bhagavan Rishihi Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan Satriya Gayat Prachetasam Mahimanam Vilokyasya Narado Bhagavan Rishihi Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan Satriya Gayat Prachetasam Imana Vilokyasya Mahimana Vilokyasya Bhagavan Rishihi Prachetasam Mahimanam, glories, Vilokya, observing, Asya, of Dhruva Maharaj, Naradaha, the great sage Narada, Bhagavan, equally as exalted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishihi, the saint, Atodyam, the stringed instrument veena. Vitudan, playing on. Shlokan, verses. Satre, in the sacrificial arena. Agayat, chanted. Prachetasam, of the Prachetas. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation, please repeat. After observing the glories of Dhruva Maharaj, the great sage Narada, playing his veena, went to the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas and very happily chanted the following 3 verses. Purport, please listen. The great sage Narad was the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj. Certainly, he was very glad to see Dhruva's glories. As a father is very happy to see the son's advancement in every respect, so the spiritual master is very happy to observe the ascendancy of his disciple. Om Ajnanatirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Mahavishnu Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I hope all the online viewers can hear fine. If not, just let us know. I'm presuming everything is okay.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah,
Everybody
all good.
online. Mahimanam vilokyasya narado bhagavan rishihi atodyam vitudan shlokan satraya gayat prachetasam. So this verse is the culmination or the conclusion of this particular chapter, and not only the chapter, it's the particular pastime of Dhruva Maharaj that we've been hearing for the last few weeks or months. So let's look at the verse. What is it saying? Mahimanam. It's Mahima. Mahima means kisi ki mahima gana. So to glorify, glorification of somebody. So Mahima. So Mahima, what? Vilokya. Vilokya asya. So Mahima, the glory, is being observed. Vilokya means observed. Asya. Asya means whose? Dhruva Maharaj's. So Narad Muni, who is observing? Narad Muni is observing. The next line says, who is this? So Narada Bhagavan Rishihi. So Narad, who is also referred to as Bhagavan. In any way, people are really, in general, are confused about Bhagavan. And when sometimes in Bhagavatam or the other scriptures, other personalities are addressed as Bhagavan. Like sometimes Brahma is addressed as Bhagavan. Narada is addressed as Bhagavan. Right? Of course, Krishna is also addressed as Bhagavan. So people think everybody is Bhagavan. So here Prabhupada gives a very crisp word for word translation, and he says Bhagavan in this particular context, in this shloka, means as exalted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not the Supreme Personality of God, if you understand that. So here it is mentioned Narada Bhagavan Rishihi, that saint who is as exalted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Narad Muni. What was he doing? He was observing the glories of Dhruva Maharaj. Then Atodyam. Atodyam Vitudan Shlokan. Atodya is what? What is Narad Muni identified with? What is something that when you see, you know this is Narad Muni, whether you understand or you understand his features or not. You see something with him and you know this is Narad Muni. What is that? The Veena, right? The single stringed instrument. It is also referred to as, yeah, it's the same name. So Narad Muni carries a Veena. Now that Veena is very special. Why is it special? It's just a one stringed instrument. But what is special? Why does Narad Muni carry it everywhere? Even when we see musicians who love their instruments, say guitar or a piano, they don't carry it everywhere, can they? Even if it's a flute, which apparently you can carry, you wouldn't carry it everywhere, right? You may be the most staunch, best, very sincere musician, but you won't carry it everywhere. But Narad Muni carries it everywhere, is it not? Have you ever seen Narad Muni kept this Veena somewhere and talking? Even you see any pictures, he is giving discourses to Yudhishthir Maharaj, or he is still carrying his Veena with him, like the Sannyas Danda, always. So what is so special about that Veena? Prabhupada mentions in the Linga Purana, it is said that this Veena was very special. So it is said that Narad Muni once asked Krishna to give him a benediction. Of course, Narad Muni has got the highest benediction in one way, so he doesn't need a benediction. But he asked Krishna for a benediction. And now we might be thinking, what did Narad Muni ask? Because he already went through the stages that we understand in Bhagavatam, right? Chapter 4, 5, 6. It gives the story of how Vyasdev was despondent and how Narad Muni came and gave him the description of his previous life and how he came to become Narad Muni. So he does not need to ask any benedictions. But he asked for a benediction. And what was the benediction? Any ideas? What benediction did Narad Muni ask Krishna after he became Narad? Fully Krishna conscious. After becoming fully Krishna conscious, he still asked for a benediction from Krishna. So what was the benediction? The benediction was, I would like to sing the glories of your lordship and your devotee. That's a benediction. Who is asking? Narad. After becoming fully 100% Krishna conscious. So you can imagine, desires never go away. But the desires have to be channeled. Yesterday, Mataji was mentioning in the class, desire management. Very, very nice term. Desire management. So even when we come to that level of pure devotion, desires are there, but they have to be directed. Of course, they are naturally directed. They don't need separate endeavor. So Narad Muni said, I want to sing your and your devotees' glories. That is the sum and substance of my existence. So Krishna was obviously very happy, and then he gave Narad Muni a Mahati Veena, the great transcendental Veena. It's not an ordinary Veena, it's a transcendental Veena. And Narad Muni accepted it, and it became a part of his existence. It's a part of him, actually. And what did Narad Muni use that Veena for? To sing what? Bollywood song. Just learn something, which is normal conception. But Narad Muni took that Veena for one purpose only, and that is to fulfill that benediction, or to actually go ahead with that boon that he had asked Krishna, to sing the transcendental glories of the Lord and his devotees. So that's why we see Narad Muni always carrying his Veena to sing. And it is said that these 7 meters of the sargam that we say, Sare, Gama, Pada, Nisa, Prabhu's musician, he knows. So these Sapta Sur, they are actually transcendental, and they're actually meant for glorification of the Lord. But after glorification, or apart from glorification, it is also used for other things. But the actual purpose of these 7 meters is to glorify the Lord. And Narad Muni is the source of all this knowledge of music. So Atodyam, he with this veena, what did he do? Vitudan, he was playing his veena. And veena, if you see, is not a very glamorous instrument, like very, those, what do you call those big stringed instruments? Yes, absolutely. We also have one in the town hall, right? There's one in the thing, and it's huge. Just looking at the instrument, you feel satisfied. But veena is a very humble instrument, just one string, and it's very, very difficult to play. For, I don't know if Prabhu would know. It's easier to play a guitar, but it's very difficult to play a good tune on a veena. Somebody can try. I didn't do it, but I've heard musicians say that. So it's not very easy instrument to play. But he took that on to play his veena and shlokan. So what does it say? Atodyam. Atodyam is the veena. He used the veena to vitudan, to play. To play what? To play and sing the glories of Guru Maharaj, or the Lord and his devotees. And not only did he use his veena to sing the glories, he also, in this instance, in this verse, it is said, he went somewhere to actually spread the glories. So one thing is to just, when you have time or when you feel like you are glorifying the Lord. In fact, Narad Muni does it all the time. So that is one thing. But the other thing is to actually reach out to somebody else and spread the glories of the Lord. And that is what is the last line. It says, Satre, in the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas, Narad Muni went there, and what did he do? He played his veena and he was glorifying Dhruva Maharaj. And who's Dhruva Maharaj? Narad's guru. So can you imagine a guru is glorifying a disciple? We understand that the disciple should glorify the guru all the time. But here the guru is glorifying the disciple. Right? Why? Because Narad Muni is not seeing Dhruva as his disciple. Narad Muni is saying, or just his disciple, he is seeing Dhruva Maharaj how? As an exalted devotee himself. And Prabhupada writes in the verse that although Narad was the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj, he was extremely happy to see that Dhruva Maharaj has, what did he achieve? He has achieved something extraordinary as a devotee. Because he has seen Dhruva Maharaj's lifeline in terms of, when Dhruva Maharaj actually, we saw, he went to the forest at the age of what? 5 or 6, he went to the forest. And that's when he met Narad Muni. And he did not accept Narad Muni straight away as his spiritual master. Oh, I fall at your feet and please. No. He was very clear in his fulfillment of his desire. And Narad Muni didn't stop him, but tried to, put him away. As a small child, it's not appropriate. So he tried to prevent him in a nice way. But he was so determined that Narad Muni knew that, okay, since he is so determined, I might as well help him. And he facilitated Dhruva Maharaj to worship appropriately. And then we know the whole story. Within 6 months, he got the darshan of the Supreme Lord. And it is said he had done this in the month of, which month was it when Dhruva Maharaj was doing his austerity? Apparently it's in the month of Kartik, which is coming. So it's a very, very auspicious time. And then, of course, we know he actually had darshan of the Lord. His desires were completely purified. And then he ruled as an ideal king. And now he has gone back to Godhead without a change of body, by just putting his feet on the head of Mr. Death, and he's gone. So you can imagine, he has seen Dhruva Maharaj from when he was a pure materialist, a typical Kshatriya king, or a small child, we would say, but still a Kshatriya spirit. And then from there, how he is evolved and he has gone back to Godhead, achieved the highest destination that a devotee can aspire for. So how do you think a parent, a teacher would feel when their student excels beyond their imagination, beyond their expectation? How do they feel? Even if they kind of so-called surpass the popularity of the guru, how does the guru feel? Threatened. Oh my God. Ab mera kya hoga? No. Yeah? The guru doesn't think, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? The guru's main intent is what? What is the ultimate desire of a guru or of a mentor in Krishna consciousness? Is to connect themselves deeply with the Supreme Lord. That connection. And to connect deeply is why they are doing their sadhana bhakti even more strongly and sincerely. That is their goal. And because they are deeply connected to Krishna, they can transfer that connection to somebody who is wanting to follow that process. So they connect and they facilitate the connection of others. That's all. So in this instance, this Dhruva Maharaj, because he attained such an exalted position, he was extremely happy. Extremely happy. How do you know he's happy? Sometimes people say, oh, I'm so happy for you. But internally, you know what's going on? Something else. So the activities and your consciousness will show what actually you feel and what you say. So how do you know that Narad Muni was so pleased with Dhruva Maharaj's advancement? The fact that he was pleased is shown by the fact that he is wanting to glorify. See, we may be, if we are really not pleased with somebody, we're just saying, and when we have the opportunity, will we knowingly glorify that person? If we are not really, our heart is not there, somehow there is a tinge of envy, say, we will never glorify. But the fact that we feel genuinely happy in the advancement of somebody who perhaps is subordinate to us would be shown when we are actually glorifying that person. Not just to glorify the person, but to ultimately please the Lord. So Narad Muni went, wherever he went, he glorified. Or that was his job anyway, to glorify the Lord and his devotees. But in this instance, he went to the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas and he was glorifying Dhruva. So that is it's a wonderful thing that, that the teacher or the guru is so proud of the disciple. Even we hear Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he had a lot of aspirations for Prabhupada. And from Lilamrita, we understand that when there was some challenges going on in Gaudiya Math at that point, some devotees or some disciples had told Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that Prabhupada, at that time who was a Grihastha, that he should move into the temple and he should help with the Math activities. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, no, let him be where he is. In course of time, he will do many things. So he could foresee that. And in one way, if we think about it, the world today, because of Srila Prabhupada's contribution, know him more than his guru, is it not? But whenever Prabhupada was given the credit of spreading Krishna consciousness, of doing so much in such a short span of time, what did Prabhupada say? It is all due to the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, and my job or my duty is to serve you, my disciples. Why? Because you all have been sent to me by my Guru Maharaj to fulfill his mission. See the wonderful mindset? And in that mood, in that consciousness, Prabhupada did all that he was meant to do. So we understand that if the whole purpose of progress in Krishna consciousness is to connect deeply with Krishna, to see how we could intensify our devotional service and pass on that message to people who are keen. So Narad Muni, he is in outside of bhakti, outside of Prabhupada's followers, he is a very misunderstood personality. But when we come to understand who he really is, he is actually the epitome of the pure devotee. He's a Mahajan. He's one of the 12 Mahajans. And he is the source or the epitome of the ideal preacher. Is it not? When we talk about preaching, we think about Narad Muni. And we are very fortunate to come in his lineage. There cannot be a better preacher than Narad Muni. What does Narad Muni do? He only preaches. There's nothing else. He just preaches. And he is the source of bhakti. In fact, he's written the Narad Bhakti Sutras, which is a treatise on devotional service. Very interesting. Prabhupada has translated that. And how does he preach? The Harinam that we do, which Prabhupada introduced in Tompkins Square, where did that come from? Prabhupada did not just speculate that. He was doing kirtan. Where does that come from? From Narad Muni. He constantly sings the glories of the Lord. He is constantly chanting the holy name. It's a nice bhajan, right? Narada Muni bajaye bhina Radhika Ramana name Nama Muni udito hoy Bhakata giye shane Narada Muni bajaye bhina Radhika Ramana name. So Narad Muni bajaye bhina Atodyam. And what does he sing? Radhika Raman. He sings the name of Krishna. And Nam Amani Udita Hoy. When he sings the name, name or Krishna actually manifests. Of course, Krishna and the name is not different. But the name actually appears, it manifests. Where? Bhakata Gita Shane. The name manifests in the middle of the Kirtan. Wherever Kirtan is going on by the Lord's devotees, there the name appears. And what does it do? How do we know that the name actually appears? We know that the name appears when there is Kirtan going on. How? Because everybody who is present in the Kirtan, who is participating wholeheartedly in the Kirtan, experience a nectarian bliss. Is it not? Otherwise, how do you think in Tompkins Park when Prabhupada was doing his Kirtan, people didn't even know about Krishna. They have never heard of the holy name. They were coming and dancing. How is it possible? They're experiencing some form of bliss, some form of happiness. They are feeling some form of connection to the holy name. And so they were dancing, they were reciting, they were singing. And this whole process comes from Narad Muni. So he's in our disciplic succession, he is the topmost preacher. And we are all followers of Narad Muni. So from this, in this particular instance, we understand that how a preacher's mindset should be in terms of his commitment to the Lord and his devotees. And not only that, Narad Muni, in terms, another aspect of his preaching is that Narad Muni is not localized. He constantly travels, right? And so we see all the sannyasis who have dedicated their life to preaching, following the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada and Narad Muni. What do? They're constantly traveling. Except for COVID, they're constantly traveling when they couldn't. But as soon as things have opened, now we see so many people, everybody's going out. Now sometimes you have to think, oh, is he coming? He's coming. I hope there's no clash. So all the devotees of the Lord, they're constantly moving. Of course, Narad Muni has got a special status. When sannyasis or devotees, they want to come to New Zealand, you still have to have visa, right? Sometimes visa problems are there, it takes 2 months, 3 months to get visa. But Narad Muni is transcendental to all that visa. He has visa free travel. And without no passport. His Veena is his passport. People see his Veena and they say, okay, go. That's fine. You can move. So he has got visa-free travel. He doesn't need any passport. He doesn't need any aircraft. He doesn't need any means of communication, accommodation or communication anywhere or any problems. He's completely free to travel anywhere. How is it? He is completely free. Why? Because he is completely surrendered. So complete surrender gives us complete freedom. In the material world is just the opposite, is it not? In the material world, you surrender means you become a slave. You become a slave. Why? Because whatever my master says I have to do, even if I like it or I don't like it, I become a slave. Is it a good thing? No. But in the transcendental realm, surrender, full-fledged, sincere surrender, fully, gives us complete freedom. And the example of that is Narad. He can travel anywhere. He can go anywhere. Why? Because he's completely absorbed in the Supreme Lord. In fact, in 1.6.34, the chapter 6, which gives his life story, there he says, Narad Muni says, Etad dhyatura chittanam matra sparshe chaya muhu bhavasindhu plavo drishto hari charyanuvarnanam. So he says that Narad Muni is saying that I have personally experienced. He's saying from his experience. Why? Because he has traveled all over the world, all over the, not of the world, all over the universes. He is one personality that can go from Patal to Satyalok to Golok. Any lok, Narad Muni can go. So he has gone everywhere. So when he has gone everywhere, seen so many things, he's got a vast experience, right? And experience counts, right? When we are looking at somebody to give them a job, people in HR, what do you look at? You look at their education qualifications, more importantly, their experience. Do they fit into that job profile? So if we have to know something, whether material, whether spiritual, who do you think is the most experienced person in this whole universe? Narad Muni. So when he says something, we should take it as Brahma Satya, absolute truth, because he doesn't say anything apart from the Supreme Lord. So he says that I have personally experienced that those people in this material world who are full of anxiety. Why they are full of anxiety? Because they are completely, they have their desires which are based on sensual. They have the sensual desires, material desires. And because they've got material desires, they're always full of anxiety. So even such people who have got material desires, who are full of anxiety, full of miseries, what will happen? They can cross over. They can cross over this ocean of nescience, of ignorance. How? By getting into a boat. Plavo drishto. By getting into the boat. And what is that boat? That boat is the constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So Narad Muni says, this is my personal experience. Narad Muni is saying it's my experience. So he knows the glories of the Supreme Name. He is spreading the glories of the Supreme Name, and he is glorifying people who are taking his instructions to heart and spreading their glories elsewhere. That is all his business. Very simple, very straightforward. So sometimes we know that, okay, the name is good and, Narad Muni is the preacher, but, it's okay. But so when we go through these things, when we repeat these pastimes, it makes our faith stronger. Now, Narad Muni is the topmost preacher, right? He is completely connected to the Lord, right? Does he go through any problems himself? Does he get criticized? He's a preacher. He's completely connected to the Lord. Does he get criticized ever? No. Yes? No. Have you heard of Narad Muni being criticized? Anybody? Anybody's heard Narad Muni was being criticized? He doesn't have any enemies. He's just glorifying the Lord. He doesn't have any material desires. He has nothing to do with what you are doing, what you're not doing. You're doing good, you're doing well. Of course, if you're doing bhakti, he is very happy. He puts you in the list of glorification. But otherwise, he's not connected. But even Narad Muni does get criticized. In fact, not only criticized, he was even given a curse. Do you believe that? Narad Muni was cursed, of all people, who has no enemies, who doesn't envy anybody. He was also cursed. And who cursed him? Daksha. Daksha, when did he curse? So it is said in Bhagavatam, there's this thing, Narad Muni himself says. So he was cursed by a lady, a Mataji. And who was she? She was the daughter of time, Kal. Her name was Jara. Who is Jara? Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. Jara is old age. So don't think that this Jara was a very old lady. She was a very beautiful, nice lady, good looking. And so once Narad Muni was traveling from Brahmalok to Bhulok, and some or the other Jara came to him and said, I'm very attracted to you. Please fulfill my desires. And, please accept me. And obviously Narad Muni is what? Pure devotee of the Lord, Brahmachari Madni. So he says, see, sorry, I cannot fulfill your desires. I am a Brahmachari. My life is completely dedicated to the Supreme Lord. Sorry, I can't do it. What happened? She was angry. Hey, how come you're not able to fulfill my desires? I curse you. Because you couldn't fulfill my desire, I curse you. Curse you what? That you will never be able to stay in one place for a long time. What would we do when we get that curse? Come back straight in front of Radhagiri and said, see, I've dedicated my whole life to you. And this lady, she is cursing me, that too for something that is not my fault. What are you doing? Get up, do something. We get so upset, isn't it? Narad Muni, what was his reaction? He said, thank you. That because you have cursed me, it may be good for me. And actually it was good for Narad Muni, right? And because of this curse, he never sits, or he is never situated in one place for a long time. And sannyasis follow the same thing. In fact, Rupa Goswami, when he says that his definition of staying in one place was what? The sannyasi stays in a place till that time that it takes to milk a cow. So you go to a place, somebody starts milking the cow, milking is over, get out. So sometimes we see a lot of preachers who come, sannyasis come, they come for 1 day, 2 days, and sometimes we feel that, such a short time, I hope they will stay for such a long time. That is good. In fact, one devotee was sharing with me, a very senior devotee. He came after a long time to New Zealand, and he was just there for over the weekend. Friday he came, Saturday, Sunday he left. And I said, oh, you came from such a long time, long way, and just 2 days. He said, see, when we go somewhere, we only stay for a short time. Why? It is better that the host tells us, please don't go. But if we stay for a long time, then the host will not tell, but will think, please go. So it's a very practical considerations, especially in this material world. We like something for a little while, but when it becomes constant, when it becomes regular, then what happens? It's like we said, the honeymoon period is over. Honeymoon, honey and moon, both are very good. Fantastic. We can't see anything else. But after the honeymoon period is over, reality strikes. And that's when the honey goes and the moon also goes. What is left is, you can imagine. So the point is, in this material world, anything for a long period of time will create problems, challenges. So that's why being steady in this material world with anything, whether it is material or spiritual, is a big thing. It is not ordinary. It is extraordinary. Even we see when we talk about dedication, determination, constant practice, it is very difficult. Say musicians, sports people who have to excel in their field, they have to be very consistent, is it not? Consistently practice, whether you like it or not. Discipline yourself. It's in the material world. What to talk about our spiritual practice? So that's why in this material world, to be disciplined, to be determined is an extremely high level of austerity, for which we don't have to go to Himalayas. Just by determining or by being determined to do something, especially in our spiritual journey, itself is a big level of austerity. So that's why Narad Muni, in this instance, he was given this curse, which turned out to be a boon, because he goes somewhere, he just does his job, his glorification, whatever he has to do, moves away. And then that's how he's able to reach to a lot of people. He can travel all over the universe, reach out to so many devotees or so many living entities and giving them the boon. What boon does Narad Muni give? He's constantly giving out boon of what? Of bhakti, of Krishna consciousness. Exactly. So the whole idea is, an ideal preacher is an ideal follower of Narad Muni. So what are the things most important? Narad Muni, first is he is constantly singing the glories of the Lord and his devotees. That is his job profile. And when the bliss he gets is enough to motivate him and keep him engaged in that service, because he's doing it sincerely. And because he is doing this, he is by default spreading this message, this connection, and he's spreading it to others who want to surrender unto him and know the process of bhakti. So he's singing the glories, and he's helping others sing the glories of the Supreme Lord and his devotees. And he feels extraordinary bliss when one of his disciples or some of his disciples, they attain an exalted position. And that is exactly something that we see in the life of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, we see in the life of Srila Prabhupada, and even now when any of the sannyasis, the gurus, they see their disciples making progress, they genuinely feel happy. And they become more committed in their connection to the Supreme Lord. So this Narad Muni's qualities is the ideal mindset of an ideal preacher. And Prabhupada has explained this very nicely to us in the right practical context to make us understand that just these simple qualities will keep us engaged in devotional service and endear us to Krishna. So in this verse, Narad Muni is glorifying Dhruva Maharaj, and he is finding opportunities to spread the glories elsewhere. So in the month of Kartik that is coming, we have to understand Dhruva Maharaj did his austerities in Kartik. He has done what he's doing, constantly glorifying. So this Kartik month is another opportunity for us to glorify the Lord, to follow in the footsteps of Narad Muni, and to spread these glories to as many people as possible. So let's take it upon us as a collective in Auckland, reach out to maximum people, give them or spread the glories of the Lord and his devotees in this month of Kartik. On that note, Narad Muni ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. If anybody has any questions or comments, I can take something from online as well. If anybody has anything to share, please go ahead. Not whether I'll be able to hear. All good? Excellent. Time for the marriage to begin. Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.